Hello, LinkedIn makers and movers. Our guest today is the first active sales leader we've had on the podcast, and I'm particularly excited to dig into where LinkedIn and selling intersect. He first caught my eye back in 2022 when I was working in the Shopify ecosystem and helping episode 5 guest, Kate Stevens, with her LinkedIn presence. Kate and I both flagged him early as someone we wanted to follow and learn from on LinkedIn. And while many may not know today's guest by name, he's very much a part of the who's who in the Shopify direct consumer retail tech world. And that ecosystem is almost like a bubble unto itself on LinkedIn. We can talk about that a little bit later. It's one of the most active corners of the LinkedIn platform, a close second to B2B go-to-marketing, because it's not just the SaaS founders and the agency owners posting. It's also the brand operators. They post like crazy too, because they want to get PR and they want to get attention for their brand. And that has spilled into the world of LinkedIn. Our guest today is Neal Goyal, the VP of Sales at Disco. It's a post-purchase ad network. It's a platform that serves up relevant product offers at checkout and helps brands work together to drive more revenue and retention. Now, before I pass the mic to Neal, I want to get a little background. Neal is a career salesperson with a history of smashing his quota. Got to start at Google in a 100% outbound role, and he exceeded 200% of his number in just 1 year. But his LinkedIn presence, as we know it today, really started to take shape when he was an AE at a company called Buildfire. It's a mobile app builder. And there he crushed 190% of quota. That's not terrible or anything. He was a top ranked AE, and he personally closed nearly 30% of the company's revenue in one of the years he was there. And like a lot of our guests, Neal started posting on LinkedIn during the early pandemic. His content was intermittent at first with the kind of engagement many of us probably have experienced, crickets. But in 2021, things started to click. He also joined a company called Tapcart at that time, and he recommitted to LinkedIn. He got consistent, and his posts started landing a lot more engagement. Instead of 0 likes, maybe sometimes there were dozens and more. He went on to hit 400% of his quota in 1 year at Tapcart, 80% outbound. He became Tapcart's #1 producer, closed about a third of the company's revenue during his time there. And he was promoted to director, where he coached and scaled a high-performing sales team. And last year in 2024, he joined Disco to do it all again, this time as VP of Sales. And within months, he's helped the team land a lot of enterprise logos, 8x the pipeline, and have a record quarter, which is not bad in 2 quarters. So all the while, Neal kept showing up on LinkedIn, posting a few days a week, sharing playbooks, celebrating the team wins, reflecting on his growth. Today, he's built an audience of over 14,000 followers. And as he has admittedly on LinkedIn shared that it has a transformational impact on his career. So if that's not the definition of LinkedIn famous, I don't know what is. And with that, let's give a big, warm LinkedIn famous welcome to Neal Goyal. Welcome to the LinkedIn Famous Podcast, the show where we get real about what it takes to build a personal brand on LinkedIn that gets real business results. We're talking about driving revenue from a personal LinkedIn profile by sharing real and authentic stories and points of view. I am Brad Zomick, your host and the founder of Spectrumer, a personal brand consultancy that helps founders and executives get LinkedIn famous. Join me for unfiltered conversations from the trenches of LinkedIn. We'll meet CEOs, go-to-market executives, subject matter experts, and company employees with blockbuster LinkedIn results. We'll unpack strategy and leave you with tactical advice to grow your personal brand and demand for your company's products and services. All right, LinkedIn hustlers, it's time to level up.
Wow, Brad, that was such a kind and thoughtful introduction. Yes, you've done your homework for sure, but thank you so much for the red carpet. Totally separate and apart. Like, I've been following your journey for such a long time. I feel like this conversation is so far overdue. I've followed everything you've done on LinkedIn, the presence you've done, and how you've supported other leaders in building their presence on LinkedIn too. So I'm so glad we're having this conversation today.
Awesome. Yeah, the feeling's mutual. So is there anything in your background that you wanted to double click on?
Yeah, I think it was, you brought up something very interesting. It was like really around the time when I was at Buildfire. This is about 5 years ago, where I started doing something on LinkedIn. It wasn't really until I joined Tapcart where I really started, building some consistency with it. But I think it's also worth sharing why the why behind even getting started. I remember when I first joined BuildFire, it was like, oh, you're kind of unproven in sales, in this type of solution that we're selling. And so, you know what we're going to do? We're going to allow you to sell full cycle. We do have a team of BDRs that are sourcing leads and we are fielding inbound leads. But for you, we actually want you to source your own leads and close them. You're not going to get any inbound leads. You're not going to get any of that. It was like kind of like this bet that they were making on me. And I was very much willing to take that bet, right? And so that's where my everything to me was outbound, right? Everything I had done starting in my sales career was like 100% outbound. That's where my like sales DNA really comes from. I don't really know a world where there are warm leads already warmed up and whatnot. And so the goal of building my entire sales process and driving success came from this overwhelming desire to be successful, this inner hunger that couldn't be satiated. But that alone doesn't drive the outcome, right? That might fuel the direction towards it, but it doesn't actually drive that in an outcome just because you want it so bad. And so I was always trying to find new ways to say, like, how do I make outbound easier? And I mean, this is now we're talking like 2020 at this point. The email as a channel had already been, showing its decline in performance as an outbound channel. And that only got precipitously worse, right? So now as I'm as I focus into for instance, the Shopify ecosystem, you think of the Shopify ecosystem, we have, 14,253 software companies that are all outbounding to the same 3,000 brands out there, right? It's like an incredibly crowded space. The brand founders, CMOs, VPs are getting inundated more than ever. And so email as a channel has continued to decline year after year since then, right? So the question is, if you're trying to get that relevant message to your prospect, how do you stand out? How do you build trust? How do you establish credibility in the eyes of your ICP? And so that's where I started the thought process around LinkedIn. I was like, why isn't anybody doing this? Like, why aren't people posting? Oh, it's probably because it doesn't work. Well, if it doesn't work, it's like kind of the same thing as cold calling. Why is cold calling broken? Why doesn't cold calling work? It's because nobody does it, right? The few that do actually kind of stand out from the pack. And I think I took that same mantra with LinkedIn. Is like, nobody's really creating content. Most people are lurking. Most people are watching. They're spending a lot of time there. And your persona and your buyer are spending your time there. So why wouldn't I want to create content? And so I think I just started with this. It was truly blind faith. I didn't have a lot of people at that time that I really idolized and were doing what I was doing. I knew the Justin Welches of the world, right? That had built these amazing businesses via LinkedIn. But in terms of something relevant to my personal career, focusing on e-commerce, I didn't really see anybody doing it, right? So I think it was the first 4 or 5 months. It was just truly just like, it's kind of like setting foot in the gym. Like, I think it's going to yield a good result. It's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen by the end of the week. But it's not going to hurt me, right? It's only upside, so why not try it? And so that's really what the first 6 months was. It was just kind of like this blind faith associated with creating content on LinkedIn.
Ah, it's interesting. So you had a little inspiration from Justin Welch. Were there any other sales leaders or, that inspired you? Because I think a lot of people started around that time.
The only sales leaders I saw doing it were those that were selling some kind of sales tech platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like how to sell, whether it's companies like Gong and Outreach and Chili Piper, right? Like these are all sales tech, sales enablement platforms. And those are the only sales leaders that were creating content, right? So, the Kevin Dorseys of the world, that's where I got my early inspiration for wow, these people are building some pretty amazing audiences. Now, the only part that was tough for me to connect about was all they were primarily focused on talking about was how to sell better, how to run a cycle better, how to prospect better, and all those things, which is great, but it wasn't really relevant for my ICP. My ICP is an e-commerce merchant. It's a brand, right? So me talking about sales all day, every day on LinkedIn wouldn't really be relevant for my audience. So in terms of those who I looked at were leveraging LinkedIn to speak to their specific persona, I didn't really have someone that I looked at. So for me, it was very much like trial and error, right? Knowing that So LinkedIn has driven results for the Kevin Dorseys and Justin Welches of the world, believing that, you know what, how do I take what they've done and repurpose it and do it for my niche, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Kevin Dorsey was selling sales and talking about sales. Same with Justin Welch talking about marketing, selling marketing. And that's great that you can kind of see that application and apply it to a different lane. And then clearly it paid off. So in that first year, I did a little detective work. And when you were at Build Fire, you mentioned it was like this blind leap of faith. And it was, right? You didn't get a lot of engagement. You changed roles. And that's when it seemed like things started taking off. Do you think that was coincidental? Did something click? Was there any learnings in that first year of posting into the ether before things started to kind of start hitting the hockey
Yeah.
stick?
First off, I think there's two things that play with that in terms of that timing. Number one, if you notice when someone does post on LinkedIn and it's like a new thing for them, there is like an incredible amount of imposter syndrome that comes into the equation, right? Like all kinds of self-doubt. Am I saying the right things? Are people going to make fun of me? Are people going to value what I say? Is it going to even land? Is it going to get the engagement? Is my copying good? Is my copy bad? Like there's so much self-doubt and self-questioning that takes place when you first start on LinkedIn, right? So I think that's where you saw kind of sporadic during that time. That was me kind of like just dabbling, but then should I do it? Should I not? Like I've never really been on a stage before. Like should I even like dip my toe in? And that's all I did. I kind of dipped my toe in without any consistency. And then the other part is that, Build Fire kind of, I think moving to TapCard actually helped me harness that in a much bigger way for the following reason, where BuildFire was a solution that sold to multiple personas. There was not one specific persona. It sold to literally every industry and every type of persona at that particular, target account, right? So like it was selling a solution that was applicable to everyone. So it's really hard to write content that speaks to one specific audience, right? And I think what we've learned with LinkedIn, when you look at all the amazing creators out there, they pick their niche, they stick with their niche, and that's where they draw on the right kinds of eyeballs, their target ICP, and those are the ones that drive the biggest outcomes. So when TapCard, we focus strictly on Shopify ecosystem. That was my first foray into like Shopify only. BuildFire did some Shopify, but like TapCart was Shopify only. And that's where my whole like world embedded within the Shopify SaaS ecosystem and brand ecosystem really took fold. And I realized I'm like, wow, all of these brands are spending their time on LinkedIn. So why wouldn't I start talking about e-commerce, retention, LTV, all the things that matter? Because it was really just a function of cutting through the noise, right? I think when I joined TapCart, we were 100% an inbound led motion, right? So in other words, nearly 100% of the leads were people like coming to our website and asking for a demo, right? And don't get me wrong, that is an amazing feeling. It's like a right place, right time. You feel the product market fit. It's all a beautiful feeling. Sales reps love it, high intent when they come in. But I actually viewed that as a problem because when you think of an inbound lead, you think of, okay, sure, they're high intent. Yes, they're eager to learn about your solution, but they may not be your ICP. They might not be a perfect fit customer. These are inbound leads are also the ones that have a tendency to like churn quicker too, right? They may not be that perfect fit. Whereas for me, outbound meant, wait a second, okay, I need to go identify the brands that are going to absolutely crush it with our solution, right? Like there's no question that the brand would see instant win from implementing our solution. They're going to pay us the most over the course of that time and stay forever because they love it so much and are seeing the outcomes from it, right? That's what outcome gives you. Allows you to choose your customer, right? Your perfect fit customer and focus on getting those customers into your funnel, right? And so when TapCard was an inbound led motion and now here I join, I broke a ton of rules. Like I almost remember this. It was like I was 30 days on the job and everyone's like, oh, there's no like there wasn't any territories, right? There was just like everyone was kind of free for all on brands that they could go prospect into and sell into. And I'm like, wait a second, there's no lines I need to stand between, like stay between. Okay, I'm just going, right? Like, let's go, right? And that's what happened. I ended up like veering into like a lot of people's lanes because my outbound was literally going everywhere.
Yeah.
And then, even then, with that volume, I saw the outcomes, early outcomes at TapCard, just first 1, 2, 3 months. The real challenge was like, wow, the email performance though is still just declining in a pretty huge way. And that's where it was like about 3 months into my role at TapCard where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start posting on LinkedIn with the goal of saying, I don't know if my prospects ready to buy right now. I don't know if they really want the solution that we have, but I'm going to help create content that keeps them engaged, that entertains them, maybe teaches them something. And when they are ready, then they'll think of one particular person because they've developed enough of a relationship virtually, built enough trust, have established credibility in their eyes. And once they're ready, then they'll come talk to me, right? And that's kind of how it all started during that period and gained early momentum.
That makes a lot of sense. Those people have if you talk about banked, they have the need and timing, but they don't necessarily have the budget or authority or the right profile. They tend to be very price sensitive. All those people coming in for Google search. I want to get a little bit into your process, but we just jumped right into it. We came out of the gates, guns blazing. But there's one question I like to ask every guest when they come on. I want to know something about yourself that your audience wouldn't know about you from your LinkedIn profile and posting.
Okay. First things first,
Switching
I think,
gears.
yeah, like, well, what is something that they don't know about me? Well, first things first, I think everything comes from, I would say I'm the happiest I've ever been in my entire career at this exact moment, right? And very few people, I think, can say that, right? Life, careers, like relationships, they go up and down over the course of one's lifetime. And for me, I'm just kind of at a place where I'm literally the happiest I've ever been in my entire career. Like I'm no spring chicken. I'm 43 years old. But I think I've really found something that I truly love. And I think for me, it's that e-commerce merchant. It's less about like what is the particular product or company that I'm working for. It's actually the people who I get to serve, right? I have just an obsession with serving the folks in the e-commerce community because I very much relate to them. I've had my own roller coaster in my own life where I realized like, gosh, every one of these merchants I'm working with are so relatable to me. Like they've built these brands on their backs, in their living rooms, from their basements. They have a certain level of tenacity that I feel like I want to match every single day. I feel like I see a lot of my own personality, my inner desire in what these merchants are navigating day in, day out. They've been delivered every possible curveball in the book, and yet they continue to come out swinging. And you don't find that in like working in like mega enterprise. You don't have that same level of hunger and tenacity that resonates through every corner of the organization. So for me, I'm just like obsessed with the e-commerce merchant. I just literally have fallen in love with them. And that's why I love so much what I do day in and day out. It's just the people that I get to serve.
Having worked in that ecosystem, it is such a cool space to work in. As you say, everybody knows consumer brands. And honestly, coming from the B2B space, their marketing powers and creativity, as I found, was always just light years ahead of B2B. Yeah, they're so much more interesting and there's so much to learn. I think that's a superpower to be able to relate to your audience and love what they do. It's inspiring. I think we take away from that is that probably people should find a way to kind of love the audience or love the product.
That's right. That's right. As long as you are able to fall in love with who you serve, outcomes actually naturally come after that, right? You spend 8 hours a day interfacing with a prospect that you dramatically respect, that you understand, you feel like they relate to you, you relate to them. It allows you to not only make your job more enjoyable, but then also be able to lead with like a very empathetic sales process. And that empathy goes a long way in just understanding like, hey, like what kind of world are they living in? What are the ways I can look at problems the way they may be looking at problems that they're looking to solve for and then solve them accordingly, right? So a lot of times I think sales folks look at these kind of shiny object software companies and they're like, oh, I want to go work for this SaaS, for this SaaS, for this SaaS. It looks like they're doing exciting things. And they often ignore like, wait a second, it's less about the product. It's less about the company. It's actually more a function of who you're serving. If you enjoy who you're serving, that's going to be like the largest indicating or influencing factor in whether or not you do well there.
I respect that too. And actually, one of the reasons I do what I do, I love working with founders. There is a corollary because I think a lot of the brands that you serve too, or sometimes you're actually working with the founder. The consumer brands are just a really interesting space and different marketing challenges, but pretty fascinating and interesting. There's never a dull day in that ecosystem. I want to get back into your process, and maybe we can start a little bit with, how you evolved your approach. And you mentioned that you narrowed your ICP, and that makes a lot of sense because actually, if I remember correctly, I was snooping around in your old post, like you would be talking about the application of Buildfire for influencers, and then it would be Shopify, and then it would be something else. So you narrowed the scope. How did you find inspiration? Like, what does your process look for to have that content? How do you find inspiration and keep being able to talk about the same thing over and over again?
Great call out, right? So I post 6 times a day or 6 times a week, sorry, six
Hmm.
times a week. And for me, it comes down to a couple of things. First, I'll talk about the what in terms of like how I determined what I write about, what my process is for writing. But then there's the other more surgical part that most people don't see because it's more of the sales process, behind the scenes sales process that supports it as well. So first, when it comes to going back to what I said, I really enjoy interacting and relating and engaging with e-commerce merchants. So if I was having a conversation with them, what would I be saying? What would I want to have a conversation with them about? Right. And that was kind of the source of the ideas. For me, writing about on LinkedIn was not just about being the brand ambassador for a software company that I represent, although I did that really well, right? I
Hmm.
did that extremely well. But I've also found the balance between saying like, okay, there's a time to promote the company and service that you're offering. There's a time to share things that are more broader for a wider audience, an e-commerce audience that's relevant and tactical for them. And then there's the third part, which is the personal side, occasionally sharing some personal details about oneself, because at the end of the day, you could have amazing software solutions, but people ultimately want to work with people they like and know, right? So like sharing some of that personal along the way too. So that's how we kind of looked at breaking up the content strategies into those three buckets. The other part is like, how do you determine what to write on any given day, right? How do you do that? And I think in the first year of my LinkedIn journey, and again, when I say year, I'm talking about really that first year at Tapcart, it was just like, hey, just write something. I'm a 4 a.m. guy. I'm up at 4 a.m. every single day. The first thing I want to do after I have my cup of coffee is just sit down and write. Like that's the only thing that comes into my mind. Maybe it's a function of like when I go to bed at night, I have like 100 ideas and I'm just like trying to like put a lid on my brain so I can actually go to sleep. And then that's the first thing that wants to come out in the morning, right? And I just put it on paper, right? So then that's what I would do. I would just like pull up my Gmail drafts and just start drafting and writing ideas down. And I would literally ideas could be all over the place. They could be over like 3 or 4 posts at once. And then over time, I realized, hey, what's more relevant for my particular audience? And I harness it. So I draft, I redraft. Like I'm pretty obsessed with copy now, and I was then, and refined it, right? A lot of it is trial and error. Like everyone looks at it, they're like, oh, you're so consistent and what you write is this or that. It really comes down to everyone finding their own voice, right? And I just found that can only come but just by doing, by putting into practice, seeing what resonates, seeing what doesn't, right? Then the other part is like, how did I weave this into my sales process, right? That's the other part of it. It was like, okay, because why did I really start on LinkedIn was to say, hey, I have a job to do to drive substantial revenue for the company that I work for. My job is to land large customers, develop strong relationships with them. Okay, how can I do that? And so when you think of curating content, you look at a lot of founders, right, that put content out there, right? Yeah, think of Kate, right, from Bridge. Think of Rashab from Vermont. Think of Adam Robinson from RB2B. Like these are all founders that are putting great content out there. And founder-led content is an absolute must. Like if any SaaS company, I think I posted a pretty controversial take on this just a couple of days ago. Like if you're an exec and not posting on exec for a B2B SaaS and you're not posting on LinkedIn, what's going on here? Like that's like that. What year are we living in, right? But here's the thing with founder-led content is it's a beautiful thing because it's content created in a channel where all of the prospects are living. It is content on a stage, but it's a very much driving an inbound led motion, right? It'll draw a lot of eyeballs, a lot of attention. Founders get a lot of engagement on their posts. So it's an inbound led motion, which goes back to what I mentioned when I joined TapCard. It's like it was 100% inbound. It's not necessarily a perfect customer that's coming in. It's not your ICP. It's not necessarily that big target whale that you're going after, but you are going to have inbound interest from it, right? Which is never a bad thing. However, now I'm like, okay, well, what if a salesperson was posting content? How can I take my content that I'm posting? Right now, I'm just posting what I think is valuable to the community, or maybe like promoting, TapCard or whatever company I was working for. But then how do I weave that into my sales process? And that's where it kind of took a different turn. That's the part most people don't see day in and day out, is that if I finally have engaged with a prospect on social, my content is often targeted towards them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big believer that in outbound, spray and pray is the worst approach that we could ever employ. So for me, it was always focusing on 1 to 2 to 3 prospects at any given one moment. And so now the question is, if I've reached out to this prospect, cold email, they're going to ignore it. Even if I send them a DM, well, guess what? Your DM, like all salespeople sending their DMs, 1 in 5, 1 in 6 are getting accepted. The other 5 out of 6 are declining because they don't know who you are, right? Well, once a prospect or any user, once they decline your invite, you have officially burned that bridge to that user, right? You've lost that opportunity to have a two-way communication. So from my perspective, it was always about engaging publicly, right? So if I had a particular brand that I wanted to work with and the VP of e-commerce shared something on social, you would 100% see me in the comment section of that person's post, right? And
So
that
you
I
had
think
a target list. And just to
100%.
clarify, target list in your connection request and your commenting focus right on that list.
Yes, no connection request, right?
Mhm.
So no connection request, because for me, if you think about a sales process, too often does a salesperson prematurely ask for something before they've given something, right? So in the sales process, particularly in prospecting, view the analogy of a bank, right? There's a concept of deposits and withdrawals. Can you go to a bank, walk into a bank saying, I'd like to open up a bank account. Okay, I opened my bank account. I'd like to make a withdrawal. You have to make a series of deposits over time, and then in the future you can make a withdrawal. Treat relationships the same way, right? Can you be that guy that like sees somebody across the way at the bar and says, you know what, walks out and walks up and asks for their phone number? That is, sure, it happens, but that's callous. That's like not tasteful, right? It's asking for something. It's being assumptive when you don't have the right to be. The question is, how can you make a series of deposits over time that allows you to earn the right for that next step? So for me, that concept was, hey, VP e-commerce said something about their new website redesign. Give them some feedback in the comments or cheer them on. Someone got promoted. Congratulations. I'm so excited for you. And that's the thing. Remember, it's about who you serve and who you're interfacing. So I'm always cheerleading the e-commerce brands, the merchants. I'm like always feeling like I'm like rooting them on in my day-to-day job. I was just doing that publicly and nobody else is doing it. You'll see everybody else just like the post. Nobody remembers who liked the post. Everybody remembers who left a thoughtful comment. So I did that. I probably leave anywhere between 1 to 200 comments per week right now. Right.
Oh, yeah.
1 to
Wow.
1 to 200 comments. Now the question is, wait a second. I now have gotten this direct message from Neal, or this connect request, this process. Oh, wait, who's this Neal guy? Oh, yeah, he's the guy that's hopped up on all kinds of caffeine. He's super optimistic and he always says something nice. Okay, he always says something nice to me. Fine, accept. See, that was my withdrawal. I asked them to accept my connection request, but I made a series of deposits that happened before that. And that's why my connect request is about 90%. When I send a connect request, it's a 90% approval because I've already made a series of public deposits before I even go ask for the connection request, right? That requires a true long game approach.
Yeah.
It requires you like putting in a lot of work for 30 to 45 to 60 days publicly commenting before
Multiple times, like hitting up that same person, like anytime they post. What do you do when they don't post?
If they don't post, I've done research on every one of the prospects and know them really well. So even if they don't post, What about another scenario where the company posted their brand new website on their company page and you say, oh, wow, website it looks beautiful. I bet so-and-so had something to do with this, right? And it's that VP of e-commerce that you led by virtue of your research that you did it. So you give them public praise. Like everybody loves praise. Everybody loves to be complimented, and everybody loves to be complimented in public, right? But it's not about fake compliments. It's about genuine connections, genuine care. And again, it comes from like truly loving the prospect that you're serving. And everything I share in that comment is actually just the way I was genuinely feeling at that point. The only thing is everybody else is too scared to share how they're truly feeling, like or share that one extra thought process publicly with their audience. No problem. I can pause.
I love your approach to commenting, and I love that long game. So clearly you start with a very targeted list, and you're just going to follow these people, all the people in the organization. You're going to follow the company page. And do you try to use any tech to streamline that, aware on your commenting, or you're just the old-fashioned way?
I'm pretty old-fashioned, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty old-fashioned. I think it's pretty tough to build relationships with using software, right? So yes, there's so much amazing software out there to make teams more efficient and to help them in different parts of their sales process. But for me, I think a large part of my success is a function of, well, if we look at the outcomes, every single merchant knows that if Neal onboarded them onto a solution, that Neal also never goes away either, right? Like post-sale. So like for me, it's part of my like inner mantra that like I will never leave, because if I presented a solution, a vision for what the outcome that's going to be derived from the solution, the problems that it's going to solve, well, I better be there to make sure that those outcomes are actually happening, that their vision's actually being carried, coming to life. That's what I did literally from day one at Tapcart, most notably, is that I literally never left. What that did for the merchant, though, is they're like, okay, Neal's not just selling me and throwing me over to a CSM. Neal's going to be there no matter what. Good outcome or bad outcome, Neal was always there, right? And that was a reputation I developed that allowed me to also get a lot of like introductions from others, like, hey, if you're going to work with somebody, work with Neal, because he just literally never leaves your side. Even though I didn't necessarily have a financial interest to do so, I just genuinely cared that they got the service and outcome that they were expecting, right? That, if you think of that mindset, that's not a very common mindset. So now apply that into the concept of building relationships. It's like the shortcuts to building relationships, there aren't there. They're like, it requires a long game approach. It requires to do things that don't drive instant outcome, instant results. So for me, I genuinely just spend an hour a day on LinkedIn and trying to figure out like, hey, what are all the people that I care about doing today? So I genuinely do that.
Are you bookmarking profiles and company pages and all your target accounts and just kind of working down the line to see who's active?
Exactly. Like the one tool that complements, I don't use any AI that's weaved into LinkedIn at all. Like AI commenting, forget it. Like don't even get me started there. But the Sales Navigator is extremely helpful because
yes, you can put all your prospects in there.
Exactly. So LinkedIn's going to allow you to be able to interface and interact with all the people in the ecosystem, which includes the brands that you're serving, but then also the other ecosystem members. But then if you want to get really targeted with the particular brands that you're working with and serving, whether current customers or future, then you're able to do that in Sales Navigator and engage in a more efficient way as well.
No wonder you crushed your quota while you're flexing your LinkedIn muscles here. You're the sales leader, right? And I'm like, what is going on when you're in Tapcart, now Disco? Are your founders active on LinkedIn too? Or what is the founders or marketing think about all this?
Yeah, so great call out. I think at Tapcart, I was kind of the sole individual that was posting publicly on behalf of the company from an individual perspective. I had started that just kind of on my own. I think there was a point where I remember we had a company all hands. This is like in my first like month or two. And the founder CEO was like, hey guys, let's get louder on LinkedIn. Right. And then I think everyone got loud for like a week. Yeah. And then I just kept going every day. Like I just never stopped. Right. Mm-hmm. So I was the lone individual and kind of made myself in a way a public face of TapCart, right? Not that I was trying to crave any type of attention. For me, it was driving outcomes. TapCart didn't have a problem with it either, right? Because in year one, when I joined TapCart, we were probably at 8 million annual recurring revenue. We had over the next 3 years after that, we had 3, 4, 5x'd that figure, and I had closed over a third of that revenue, 80% of which was sourced by what
It
I
was
was doing
good for
on LinkedIn,
business.
right? Yeah. So they were everyone was happy. Yeah. Sometimes the marketing's like, gosh, like we have certain ways of doing things that are like on brand. But I think that was maybe just an initial reservation. Very quickly, the marketing team's like, okay, we're a very symbiotic relationship. For me, I think the old sales leadership model is like, hey, here's marketing and here's sales, and these are their two functions. Today, it's one single revenue engine in my view, right? So, and then here at Disco, we don't have a marketing team.
Oh,
So
interesting. Yeah.
we don't have a CMO. We don't have a VP of marketing. We have an amazing individual that helps us in our product marketing, right? But we don't have a super senior leader here at Disco overseeing marketing, right? So and if you look at the pipeline that we've created at Disco, it's literally all outbound, right? 92% of our pipeline is created literally from our lean and mean sales team, right? And a lot of that has come through content creation, right? Our pipeline comes all from LinkedIn. We host events, but how do we garner that attention for those events? We're doing it all through LinkedIn. And we don't really do anything with the company branded pages a whole lot or anything like that. It's really just like us going out there and posting. And that's our visibility publicly on LinkedIn has just come from the sales team specific.
That's amazing. So now not only at like a TapCart, you were like a one-man wrecking ball, but now you have a team, you're coaching a team on the same playbook. And that's pretty impressive. I got to say, kudos to you. Wonderful.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
In the beginning, I talked a lot about your career success and your sales success. What was any like unexpected impact outside of the business impact?
I've shared publicly in the past where it's like LinkedIn has been truly transformative for my career. And until now, just like you said, we talked about the business impact and what LinkedIn has driven. I think the other part is like the concept of the personal branding element that comes alongside all of that. You truly can't quantify what that's worth. Right now, if I want to walk into a door, I can get into that door, right? If I want to have a conversation with somebody, it can be had. And a lot of that has come from the concept of building a reputation publicly, right? There comes with downfalls. You're like really putting yourself out there too, right? You open yourself to scrutiny, you open yourself to judgment, there's all the other things that you just don't hear what people are saying or thinking, right? Like by putting yourself out there. But for me, there's such an incredible personal branding element to this where it opens more doors than are humanly possible. So we're not always talking about sales in closing revenue, but it's also the concept of like, that's kind of how I landed here at Disco, right? Too. Disco it's what opened up that opportunity. And for me, I'm like extremely happy in what I'm doing right now. And a lot of that has come from the relationships I've been able to build along the way, the credibility I've been able to build along the way. And I don't think I'm really doing anything that special. Like, I just think I'm into the 1% of people that are doing it. So I think call out more of a lesson is that like, if I was a seller, let's say, going back to the business habit, if I was a seller, would I want to be on the stage of a theater, a beautiful theater that has the seats all filled with my target customer and have the opportunity to talk about what I do and how I can bring value to them? Would I want that opportunity as a salesperson? Every salesperson would say, yes, please give me that opportunity. Yet every seller has that opportunity on LinkedIn. And 99 out of 100 choose not to step on the LinkedIn stage. When that theater is LinkedIn, all of your buyers are there. They are seeing your content. They are spending their time there. And they're spending more time there as each month goes by. So why is it 99 out of 100 don't set foot on that stage, right? That is not just about the business impact and sales. That's the concept of personal things too. If you wanted to showcase your value as a person, and showcase and have opportunities come your way, become a magnet for opportunities for anything across the spectrum. How can those opportunities come to you if you're not visible, if you're not on that stage? And I think the only thing that holds individuals back is like fear, self-doubt, self-question. I don't know what to say. I don't know if what I'm going to write is going to be the right thing. I don't want to put myself out there, or it's too cringe, or whatever anyone says to hold themselves back from setting on that stage. It just goes back to, think of how many people in the world do you think have a good singing voice? I would put a number, like a good singing voice, I would put that number like north of 50, 100 million people in this world have a really good voice. Wait, how many of those people actually set foot and perform on a stage?
Not a lot.
Boom. That number drops to 1, 2, 3%. And then of those 1, 2, 3%, how many people make money and earn an income and see life-changing outcomes as a result of setting foot on the stage? That goes down even further, right? But the first step there is you got to set foot on that stage.
That's a good seg into the lightning round. And maybe the first question I'll ask there is, what advice do you give somebody who wants to follow in your footsteps and build a LinkedIn presence to have those doors open, whether it be careers or sales pipeline? Where do you advise people get started?
Oftentimes we talk about reverse engineering an outcome, seeing what you want your end outcome to be, right? And then reverse engineering the steps in order to, for you to get there. At the end of the day, though, every single outcome you can possibly envision for your professional life typically comes down to who you know, right? Not what you know, but who you know, right? The networks you build, the relationships you build, your network is your net worth, right? Like all of those business, financial, professional outcomes are coming from function of who you know. So the question is then, how do you get yourself into the right circles, build the right relationships with the right people that can have large influencing factors on your own trajectory? It's a function of just putting yourself out there and starting those conversations. Think of being at an event. Like, what good is it being at an event if you're standing in the corner drinking your cocktail? The goal is to go shake hands with different people at the event, get to know them, see if you have something in common. And I think people are reluctant to do that on social. They might do it in the comments, they might do it in the DMs, but on a public stage, they have a little bit of a tougher time doing that. And so if you can reverse engineer everything you want in your professional career, understand it's who you know, and the single best way to build the credibility, get yourself into the right circles, is by building a network. And there's no better way to do that through content creation and building relationships, having those work in unison with one another than on LinkedIn.
Love it. Love it. All right. A couple more lightning round questions, rapid fire. What is a LinkedIn trend that you wish would go away?
AI commenting.
Please. I'm into that.
AI commenting. I feel like AI commenting is disingenuous, especially when you know the individual. Like if you already know the person really well, and then the AI comment is just so not their tone, and it's not how they normally speak. It gives it away that they're being fake. And so I think it is very indicative of how the individual probably views building relationships. There is no shortcut to building trust. There is no shortcut to building relationships. And so AI commenting is like the exact opposite of that, right? It's the epitome of taking a shortcut. It's the epitome of not putting care into that relationship you're trying to build with someone.
All right. That is a great thing that I too would wish go away. I just ignore them now. Do you think LinkedIn in its current form is overrated or underrated?
It is so far underrated. It is so underrated because I think if I've seen the impact that LinkedIn has had on my career in a very short period of time, I think everyone right now is discounting the impact that it can have on their own, right? And a lot of that is a function of like paralysis and not knowing where to start or how to start, right? But if I've seen what has happened with my career, particularly over the last 5 years, I attribute all of that to LinkedIn. And the reason why it's underrated is that I don't think very many people are taking advantage of what's out there. I think a lot of people have criticisms of LinkedIn of like, hey, it's feeling there's different types of content and my feed's getting clogged with things I don't like. And at the end of the day, we all have are in full control of what we want our LinkedIn experience to be. We have the ability to curate our feeds. We have the ability to unfollow content that we don't find appetizing for us, right? We have the ability to control how we make the most of the platform. And if you take that mindset, then LinkedIn can be a pretty incredible place. I genuinely love finding cool things e-commerce merchants are doing and then cheering them on for it. It genuinely brings me joy and I just do it, right? But that's also why you'll see me steer far clear from really aggressive, spicy takes, clickbait type posts and things like that. You won't see me do any of that because I prefer to surround myself with people that are glass half full, people that are looking for the better side of every situation. And you can make LinkedIn what you want it to be. So I think it's a very underrated platform. And if I were to look at my own personal career and the impact it's had, if there's so much runway to be had.
Come on in, the water is warm. All right, so you were talking about kind of some of the people you surround yourself on LinkedIn. Who are you following and learning from right now? Who do you think is crushing it? Who do you like to see in your feed and cheer on, aside from your merchants?
Okay. I would say, number one, I love Blake from Tigio. I think Blake is an incredible marketing leader. He has done the LinkedIn game really well. He's walked the balance between posting on professional accomplishments and teaching the audience about the way he thinks about marketing problems, but then also speaking to his actual ICP that's driven a lot of impact for the company he works for. So I look to him very much for a lot of inspiration. Kate Stevens from Bridge as well. I know you know her, but like I have watched her journey on LinkedIn for a really long time. And quite frankly, like, I feel like I know Kate really well. When in reality, I've gotten to hang out with her, I think a grand total of 3 times, right, in person. I feel like I really know her well. And I think someone who you can get to know really well through LinkedIn, that means they're doing LinkedIn really well, right? So not only has she driven a lot of impact and a lot of eyeballs that are looking towards Bridge, but she's also shares a lot of personal things that are like, wow, I can really relate to her. So hats off to Kate and her entire journey as well.
Yeah, she really is amazing at putting herself out there, being a big voice on LinkedIn for both women, for merchants, and yeah, she's a force of nature. All right, we are sadly at the end of the line. Is there anything exciting going on that you want to plug at Disco or something going on in your life that maybe you want to share? What's next for you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have the best job right now because I'm not selling software. I think that 14,322 software companies that are all trying to sell software to the same 3,000 brands I mentioned to you before, we are not one of them. In other words, we're in the business of helping brands monetize their post-purchase. And brands are just earning cash payouts from Disco. So we don't have a software to sell. We are simply creating actual profit streams where we're sending cash the opposite way. So the reason why that's so cool is that like brand budgets are tighter than they ever have been. Margins are top of mind. Tariffs are in focus. All of these things, like everything right now is just making things harder for brands day by day, right? Customer acquisition costs have always been the story and so many other headwinds coming their way. And so we're kind of in the business of like creating an additional revenue stream that's offsetting a lot of this for them. So Disco is in a really great place right now where we're actually seeing a huge tailwind. It's a very counter recessionary type of solution where brands are able to actually like collect cash from Disco as a result of monetizing their checkout. And I think I'm loving the value that it's bringing to brands, right? Like the cash where they least expect it.
That is a cool polarity shift. Having spent 10, 15 years in SaaS, you're always looking for the line item in the budget and you're basically giving money out. It's like being Santa Claus. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective, your experience, and your insights on LinkedIn over this. What a cool journey and perspective you have. Everybody, go follow Neal Goyal on LinkedIn. You can get a feel for how he approaches things. He's may not be someone you hear about all the time, but he's doing things right on LinkedIn. Neal, thanks again for being here. And until next time, let's stay connected.
Hey, thanks so much, Brett. It was an absolute blast, and thanks so much for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode, follow Brad and Spectimer on LinkedIn for hot takes and tactical executive branding advice. For the readers in the audience, subscribe to LinkedIn Famous on Substack. And if you really loved this episode, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting platform of your choice. Until next time, stay bold, authentic, and keep on creating.